Hey guys, welcome to Dr. Davis Explains It All. And today we're going to be talking about sensing, selecting, and perceiving. Aldous Huxley, the author of The Art of Seeing and almost 50 other books, worked to teach himself how to see more clearly after basically a degenerative eye condition began to claim his eyesight. So, with only one eye that was merely capable of perceiving light, Huxley developed a method for achieving clear vision despite his failing eyesight. And this method was to sense, select, and perceive. So, let's talk a little bit more about that. In the first stage of Huxley's method on clear vision, we have to sense. So basically, we must let enough light enter into the eye so that we can see the objects which are immediately around us. Now, of course, though, sensing depends on how well the elements of your eye work. For example, if you're trying to look at something in the dark, being able to fully sense something might be a little bit difficult. However, if there's enough light and if all the elements of your eye are working properly, you'll be able to sense the light that's around you. So when you are sensing, only your brain is engaged with your surroundings because your mind really hasn't registered what exactly you are sensing. So for example, your textbook says to think of sensing as a camera without a memory card. There's no mental processing of the image during this phase of visual perception. So while we can sense it and we can see it, it doesn't mean that we're recording it, so to speak. All right, so in the next stage, we are to select a particular element to focus on and look at a specific part of a scene with a larger frame of possibilities. And we'll actually get into this a lot more when we start picking apart art in the next little bit. So this concentration is the result of a combination of light gathering and light focusing properties of the eye with the higher level functions of the mind. So now we're talking about a higher level functioning of our mind and not just simply sensing something that's around us and not really recording it. So basically speaking, selecting is a conscious intellectual act. So when you select, you engage more fully with the objects in the scene than when you are merely just sensing it. Selecting begins the process of also the classification of objects as either harmful, helpful, known, unfamiliar, meaningful, or something even like confusing. So we start to categorize things when we're in this selecting stage. So to select is to isolate an object within the area where the sharpest vision takes place in the eye. And that's why I kind of liked this image that I have on the screen, because we tend to select the red apple over the green ones. So by selecting individual objects within a scene, you're doing what the eye's physiology is made to do, which is focus your mental activities on a single area that's isolated from the other areas. So here we're focusing on that red apple, I'm sure. So in the final stage of Huxley's method, and quite possibly the most important stage, we are perceiving. So in this stage, you must try to make sense of what you've selected. So if your mind has any chance of actually storing that in that visual information, like we were talking about whenever I first initially started discussing this in the sensing stage, if we want to commit that photo to memory, like on the camera example I initially stated, we and also increase our knowledge base because now we're retaining that information. You must actively consider the meaning of what you see. So we have to actively consider what it is that we're seeing. So to process an image mentally on even a higher level than just simply sensing it, sensing it and selecting it, that is, it means that we have to concentrate on the subject within the field of view with the overall intent of finding meaning and not just simply observing. So here we're actually making meaning out of the things that we're seeing. So this process calls for a much deeper mental activity. Basically speaking, sensing without selecting often leads to mistakes in perceiving. Now, I want to give you a more real world example because I think this will help you to really put the concepts together. So let's think about this, like I said, in a more real world perspective. In our society, light is used to spotlight products in spaces and on shelves and to create environments in which you want to buy their products and their services. So I want you to think about the last major purchase you made. Now, it doesn't have to, I would prefer if you can find a major purchase because it's easier in terms of light. But if you're not, you haven't made a recent major purchase, that's fine. Just any purchase you've made will be okay. So think about the last major purchase you've made. For me, that purchase was a new computer. I was at my local Best Buy looking for a new computer as my last one just had seen better days. So while there were many things that influenced my purchase, there was also more to the process than I initially realized. Even though I teach this class, you just don't think about those things when you're out, buying a computer or whatever it is that you're doing. So first, I walked into the department and I began to sense the various forms of lighting and displays that were all around me. And at the time, I was unaware of what was taking place, but now I can kind of look back on it and see that I was drawn to certain displays due to the lighting of the products more so than others. So from here, I began to select which of the objects I wanted to focus on. In this step, I began to more fully engage with the computers around me, and even started to classify them accordingly. So now I'm in the selecting stage. So the sensing stage was when I walked into the department and I started sensing all the different things that were around me. Selecting is when I start to really select certain ones and kind of go to them and engage with them. And I even start to classify them in this stage. So I started to classify based on what was in my price range, the storage capacity, the screen size, and anything else that I was really looking for. I really wanted a matte screen on my computer instead of the normal glass screens because I work on computers a lot. So lastly, I made sense of what was originally selected. And at this point, I moved past simply categorizing the information that I was doing in the selecting stage and rather concentrated on the computers which made sense for me to purchase. So a higher level of thinking was taking place then. Remember that sensing without selecting can often lead to mistakes in perceiving. So when I got to that last part of the decision-making process, I was in the perceiving stage. So I made sense of what was around me. I wasn't just categorizing things like I did in the selection stage, but rather I started to concentrate on the things that would meet my needs and started really looking at it from that angle, and that's perception. So looking back on this situation, lighting played a large part of even the sensing and the selecting stages for me, and also the perceiving stages. So while I ultimately chose my computer based off of various needs that I had, one in particular was also how the lighting in the store caused the computer screen to glare or not glare, because that's really important for me because I work so much on computers. So as you can see, lighting can affect more of our purchases than we often realize. And the process of sensing, selecting, and perceiving goes into most of the decisions that we tend to make, especially the ones that are going to require a higher level of thinking, as it did in this situation. All right, so with that being said, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Davis Explains It All, talking about sensing, selecting, and perceiving today. If you have any questions at all this week, feel free to reach out to me about the course assignments, course material, just anything you have questions about regarding the course. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy your week. Thank you so much.